Ryan Hale crouched in the darkness of restricted Bay 7, tools spread across the concrete floor, hands slick with grease as he rewired the engine that could kill a man in 72 hours. The titanium housing was warm under his fingertips, alive, humming with a fault line no diagnostic had caught. He shouldn't be here. The badge clipped to his coveralls read maintenance, not engineering, but he'd built this engine 6 years ago under a different name in a different life. And if he didn't fix it tonight, someone was going to die on international television in front of 40 million people. Behind him, footsteps echoed in the corridor. Security made rounds every 20 minutes. He had 4 minutes left, maybe 5. His daughter's face flashed through his mind. Small hands, gap-toothed smile. The way she asked him every morning if he was going to be famous again someday. He tightened the torque wrench. Not anymore, sweetheart. Not ever again. If you're watching this, drop a like and comment what city you're tuning in from. I want to see how far this story travels. The thing about working nights at Apex Velocity Racing was that you became invisible. Ryan had been counting on that for 3 years. He pushed his maintenance cart through the sprawling complex at 11 p.m., the wheels squeaking against polished concrete, past the glass-walled engineering labs where the real work happened. Inside, men and women in tailored shirts hunched over CAD screens, tweaking aerodynamics and fuel maps for machines worth more than most people's houses. They never looked up when he passed. To them, he was furniture. A guy in coveralls who emptied trash bins and swapped air filters. Perfect. He turned down Corridor F, which led to the garage bays. Apex Velocity owned 14 race cars, but only one mattered this week, the Valkyrie MK7, their flagship entry for the Global Motorsport Invitational in Dubai. 3 days from now, it would compete against the best teams on the planet. Apex hadn't won in 4 years. The pressure was suffocating. Ryan had watched it build for months. The late-night shouting matches in the executive wing, the engineers drinking too much coffee and sleeping at their desks, the crew chief snapping at people over radio static. And now, tonight, the Valkyrie's engine had failed a simulation test. Ryan knew because he'd been cleaning the break room when the lead engineer, a gaunt man named Petrov, had slammed his tablet on the counter and said, "We're fucked, completely fucked." The other guy, Ryan didn't know his name, had asked what happened. Petrov had rubbed his face. "The combustion timing's off by 3 milliseconds. We can't find the fault. If it runs like this under race conditions, the engine seizes at high RPM. We've got 72 hours to fix it, or we pull out of Dubai." Ryan had kept wiping down the counter, kept his face blank, kept moving, but his heart had kicked into a different rhythm. 3 milliseconds. He knew exactly what that meant. Now, standing outside Bay 7 at nearly midnight, Ryan swiped his maintenance badge against the reader. The light blinked red. He tried again. Red. Of course. Restricted access. Only senior engineers and the CEO could enter this bay when a primary vehicle was inside. Ryan glanced down the empty hallway, then pulled a small RFID duplicator from his pocket. A tool he'd bought off a hacker forum 2 years ago and hoped he'd never need to use. He'd cloned a senior engineer's badge 6 months back, just in case the ghost of his old life ever came knocking. He pressed the duplicator against the reader. Green light. The bolt disengaged with a soft click. Ryan slipped inside and locked the door behind him. The Valkyrie sat under bright LEDs, sleek and low to the ground, its carbon fiber body painted in Apex's signature electric blue and silver. It looked like something that could crack the sound barrier. Ryan had seen it run on the test track once, months ago. The sound alone had made his chest tighten, a high, vicious scream that didn't belong to this world. He moved to the rear of the car and knelt beside the engine compartment. The cowling was already off. Someone had been working here earlier. Diagnostic cables snaked across the floor, connected to a laptop that had gone into sleep mode. Ryan pulled on a pair of latex gloves and leaned in close. The engine was a masterpiece. 12 cylinders, custom-built, tuned to produce nearly 900 horsepower. But Ryan wasn't looking at the headlines. He was looking at the details. The fuel injector array, the variable timing chain, the sensor grid that fed data to the onboard computer 60 times per second. And there it was. A hairline fracture in the timing sensor housing. Ryan exhaled slowly. He'd been right. This wasn't a software problem. It wasn't a calibration issue. It was a physical fault, invisible to diagnostics because the crack only opened under heat and vibration, conditions that didn't exist in a static test. But on the track, at 8,000 revolutions per minute, the sensor would misread the camshaft position by just enough to throw the combustion timing off. 3 milliseconds, enough to grenade the engine. He sat back on his heels, staring at the flaw. No one else would find this. Not in 72 hours. Maybe not ever. The smart thing to do was walk away. Report it anonymously, maybe. Let someone else take the credit and the risk. But Ryan thought about the driver, a 24-year-old kid from Portugal named Miguel Cortez, who'd worked his entire life to get a seat in a car like this. Thought about what happens when an engine seizes at 190 miles per hour. He thought about his daughter, asleep in their apartment 15 miles away, curled up with her stuffed rabbit. He thought about the man he used to be. Then he opened his toolbox. The repair took 2 hours. Ryan didn't have access to the proprietary parts catalog, so he improvised. He pulled the damaged sensor housing, cleaned the fracture site with acetone, and fabricated a reinforcement bracket using a piece of machined aluminum he scavenged from a storage bin. It wasn't elegant, it wasn't by the book, but it would hold. He reinstalled the sensor, tested the connection with a multimeter, and recalibrated the timing map using a diagnostic override he'd written into the system 6 years ago. A ghost protocol that still existed in the car's firmware because no one knew to look for it. By 2 a.m., the engine was whole again. Ryan ran a manual diagnostic from the laptop. The combustion timing read perfect, 0 deviation. He sat on the cold floor for a long time, staring at the screen. Then he wiped down every surface he'd touched, packed his tools, and left the bay exactly as he'd found it. Ryan got home at 3:15 a.m. The apartment was small, 2 bedrooms, a kitchen the size of a closet, a living room that doubled as his daughter's play area, toys scattered across the carpet, a half-finished puzzle on the coffee table. The walls were blank except for one framed photo. Ryan and Emma at the zoo, her on his shoulders, both of them laughing. He checked on her before he showered. She was sprawled across her bed, blankets kicked off, one arm flung over her head. 6 years old, and already she slept like she was trying to take up as much space as possible. He pulled the blanket back over her, brushed a strand of dark hair off her forehead. "Love you, kiddo," he whispered. She didn't stir. In the bathroom, Ryan scrubbed the grease from under his fingernails and stared at his reflection. 32 years old. Stubble he hadn't bothered to shave in 3 days. Eyes that looked older than they should. He didn't recognize the man looking back. That was the point. The call came at 9 a.m. Ryan had just dropped Emma off at school and was halfway through his first cup of coffee when his phone buzzed. Unknown number. He answered. "Yeah? Mr. Hale?" A woman's voice, clipped, professional. "This is security at Apex Velocity. We need you to come in immediately." Ryan's stomach dropped. "What's this about?" "We'll discuss it when you arrive." The line went dead. Molchet. He walked into the building at 10 a.m., still in his jeans and a faded t-shirt. Security met him at the front desk. 2 guys in black polos, both stone-faced. "Follow us, please." They led him up to the executive floor, past conference rooms with glass walls and leather chairs, to a corner office with a view of the test track. The woman sitting behind the desk was younger than Ryan expected, maybe 30. Dark hair pulled into a ponytail, sharp jawline, eyes that looked like they could cut through steel. Lena Vance, CEO of Apex Velocity Racing. She didn't stand when he entered. "Sit down, Mr. Hale." Ryan sat. Lena folded her hands on the desk. "Do you want to tell me what you were doing in Restricted Bay 7 last night?" Ryan kept his face neutral. "I don't know what you're talking about." "We have you on camera, entering the bay at 11:47 p.m., exiting at 2:13 a.m. "Shit." "I was doing my job," Ryan said carefully. "Maintenance." "Maintenance." Lena's voice was flat. "On a vehicle you're not authorized to touch. I noticed something was wrong with the engine. I fixed it." "You fixed it?" She leaned forward. "You don't have an engineering degree. You don't have clearance. You don't have permission. What you have is a criminal trespass charge if I decide to press it. Ryan met her eyes. The timing sensor housing had a fracture. It would have failed under race conditions. Your driver would have crashed. Lena didn't blink. We have a team of 15 engineers who didn't find that fault. You're telling me you did? I'm telling you I fixed it. Run a diagnostic. You'll see. For a long moment, she just stared at him. Then she picked up her phone and dialed. Petrov, run a full diagnostic on the Valkyrie. Now. She paused. I don't care. Do it. She hung up. They sat in silence. 5 minutes later, the phone rang. Lena answered, listened, and her expression changed, just for a second. Something flickered across her face. Surprise, maybe. Or confusion. She hung up. The engine tests perfect, she said slowly. Combustion timing is flawless. Ryan said nothing. Lena stood and walked to the window, her back to him. I don't know who you think you are, Mr. Hale, but this company has rules, protocols. You violated both. I don't care if you fixed the damn engine. You had no right to be there. So fire me, Ryan said quietly. She turned. I am. Ryan stood. Fine. Security will escort you out. You'll receive your final paycheck by mail. Ryan nodded. He walked to the door. Mr. Hale. He stopped. Lena's voice was colder than before. If you ever set foot in this building again, I'll have you arrested. Ryan looked back at her. For a moment, he almost said it. Almost told her the truth. But he didn't. He just walked out. Emma asked him that night why he was home early. They were sitting at the kitchen table, eating spaghetti out of plastic bowls. She had sauce on her chin. Got the day off, Ryan said. Cool. She twirled her fork. Can we go to the park? Sure. Can we get ice cream? Maybe. She grinned. You always say maybe when you mean yes. Ryan smiled despite himself. Eat your dinner, troublemaker. After she went to bed, he sat on the couch with the lights off, staring at nothing. He'd walked away from this world once, burned every bridge, buried every connection, built a life where no one knew his name or what he'd done. And in one night, he'd risked all of it. For what? For a machine. For a kid he'd never met. For a ghost he couldn't let go. Ryan closed his eyes. He didn't sleep. 2 days later, the Valkyrie won its qualifying heat in Dubai. Ryan saw it on the news. Miguel Cortez, the young Portuguese driver, had posted the fastest lap time in the event's history. The Apex Velocity team was celebrating, champagne, interviews. Lena Vance in a blazer, smiling for the cameras, talking about engineering excellence and the future of the sport. Ryan turned off the TV. Emma looked up from her coloring book. You okay, Dad? Yeah, he said. I'm fine. Talked. Lena Vance didn't sleep the night after the qualifier. She sat in her hotel room in Dubai, laptop open, staring at data logs she didn't fully understand. The Valkyrie had performed flawlessly. Better than flawless. The combustion timing had been perfect, so perfect that Petrov had pulled her aside after the race and said, I don't know what happened, but this engine is running like it's brand new, better than brand new. Lena had asked him what he meant. I mean, someone rebuilt the timing protocol from the ground up. Whoever did it knows this engine better than we do. Lena thought about the man in her office, the quiet maintenance worker with grease under his nails and eyes that looked like they'd seen too much. Ryan Hale. She opened a personnel file. 32 years old, hired 3 years ago as a night shift maintenance technician. No criminal record, no red flags. References were clean but sparse. Before Apex, he'd worked at a warehouse. Before that, a shipping company. Nothing. Lena frowned. She ran his name through a deeper search, social media, public records, anything. Still nothing. It was too clean. People left traces. Everyone did. But Ryan Hale's life seemed to start 3 years ago, fully formed, with no history before that. Lena leaned back in her chair. Who the hell are you, she thought. 3 weeks later, Ryan was stocking shelves at a hardware store in the suburbs when his phone buzzed. Unknown number again. He almost didn't answer, but he did. Mr. Hale, Lena Vance's voice. We need to talk. Ryan gripped the phone tighter. I don't think we do. The Valkyrie won in Dubai. You know that, right? I saw. The engine you fixed, it's running better than it ever has. My engineers can't explain it, but I think you can." Ryan didn't respond. "I looked into your background," Lena continued, "and you know what I found? Nothing, which is interesting because people don't just appear out of thin air, so I kept digging, called in a favor with someone who knows how to find things that don't want to be found." Ryan's pulse quickened. "And I found a name," Lena said. "Ryan Callahan. Lead propulsion engineer at Vantage Motorsport. Designed one of the most advanced race engines ever built. Won Engineer of the Year. And then, 6 years ago, he disappeared." Silence. "You're him, aren't you?" Ryan closed his eyes. "I don't know what you're talking about." "The engine in the Valkyrie," Lena said. "It's based on your design. The one Vantage sold to us after you left. They stripped your name off it, rebranded it, and we've been using it ever since. But you built it, didn't you?" Ryan's throat was tight. "I need to go." "Wait." He hung up. "Awesome." That night, Emma asked him if he was okay. "You keep looking at your phone," she said. "I'm fine, sweetheart." "You don't look fine." Ryan set the phone down. "Come here." She climbed into his lap, small and warm and trusting. "I love you," he said quietly. "I know." She poked his nose. "You tell me like 100 times a day." He smiled. "Good." But inside, Ryan felt the walls closing in. He'd spent 6 years building a life where the past couldn't find him, and now it was knocking on the door. Lena didn't stop. She flew back from Dubai and went straight to the archives, dusty storage rooms in the basement of Apex's headquarters, filled with old contracts and design files. It took her 2 days to find it, a folder labeled Vantage Acquisition, 2020. Inside were schematics, blueprints, technical drawings for the engine that would become the Valkyrie's heart, and at the bottom of one page, in small print, a name: R. Callahan, lead designer. Lena sat on the floor, surrounded by paper, her hands shaking. She pulled out her phone and called the company's legal advisor. "I need you to look into something," she said. "A contract we signed with Vantage 6 years ago, specifically the intellectual property transfer." "What are you looking for?" "I want to know if we stole someone's work, Heitek." The answer came back 3 days later. Vantage had acquired the engine design after Ryan Callahan's departure. Technically legal, because Ryan had signed an IP waiver when he joined the company. But the waiver had a clause: if the designer left under duress or coercion, the rights reverted. Ryan had left 2 weeks after his wife died in a car accident. Lena read the report twice. Then she closed her laptop and stared at the wall. She'd fired the man who'd saved her driver's life. The man who'd built the engine that won them Dubai. The man whose genius had been buried under someone else's name, and she hadn't even known. Ryan was putting Emma to bed when the knock came. He froze. "Who's that?" Emma asked. "I don't know. Stay here." He walked to the door and looked through the peephole. Lena Vance stood in the hallway, alone, hands in the pockets of a long coat. Ryan opened the door halfway. "How did you find me?" "I'm persistent." She met his eyes. "Can we talk?" "No." "Please," Emma's voice called from the bedroom. "Dad, who is it?" Ryan glanced back, then stepped into the hall and closed the door behind him. "You've got 2 minutes." Lena took a breath. "I know who you are. I know what happened. And I know we've been using your work without giving you credit. It's not my work anymore." "Yes, it is. Legally, morally, it's yours. And I was wrong. I fired you because I thought you were some reckless idiot who didn't respect the rules, but you weren't reckless. You were the only person in that building who understood what was at stake." Ryan's jaw tightened. "What do you want?" "I want to offer you a job." "I had a job. You fired me. Not as maintenance, as lead designer, full control over the propulsion systems, your name on everything, and a salary that reflects what you're actually worth." Ryan stared at her. "Why?" "Because you're the best, and because I'm trying to fix a mistake." "I don't want it." "Why not?" "Because I walked away from this life for a reason." "What reason?" Ryan's voice dropped. "Because the last time I cared about something more than my family, I lost everything." Lena was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I read about your wife. I'm sorry." Ryan looked away. You should go. I'm not asking you to give up your daughter. I'm asking you to stop hiding. You're brilliant, Ryan. You shouldn't be stocking shelves. I'm not hiding. I'm surviving. There's a difference between surviving and living. Ryan opened the door. Good night, Ms. Vance. Lena didn't move. If you change your mind, my number's the same. She walked away. Ryan stood in the doorway for a long time, watching her go. Then he went inside and locked the door. But he didn't sleep that night. And in the morning, when Emma asked him what was wrong, he couldn't find the words to explain. Because part of him, the part he'd tried to bury, was still standing in that garage bay, hands covered in grease, fixing the thing only he could fix, and he didn't know if he could walk away from it again. Emma noticed first. She always did. 3 days after Lena's visit, Ryan was making breakfast. Scrambled eggs, toast, the usual, when Emma planted herself at the kitchen table and just stared at him. What? He said, cracking another egg into the pan. You're different. I'm the same as always. Nope. She swung her legs under the chair. You keep looking at your phone and you didn't laugh at my joke yesterday. Your joke wasn't funny. It was hilarious. You just didn't hear it because you were thinking about something else. Ryan flipped the eggs. Eat your breakfast. See? You're doing it again. He set the plate in front of her. She poked at the eggs with her fork, studying him like a tiny detective. Is it about the lady who came here? Ryan froze. What lady? The one with the fancy coat. I heard you talking to her in the hallway. You were supposed to be in bed. I was curious. She took a bite of toast. She sounded important. Ryan sat down across from her. She's nobody. Nobody doesn't show up at our apartment at night. Emma? Is she your boss? She was. Not anymore. Emma tilted her head. Did you get fired? Ryan hesitated. Yeah. That sucks. Language. You say it all the time. I'm an adult. Emma grinned. So when I'm an adult, I can say it? Finish your eggs. She did, but she kept watching him with those sharp, knowing eyes that made Ryan feel like she could see straight through him. Kids were like that. They picked up on things adults tried to hide. After he dropped her at school, Ryan sat in his car for 10 minutes, engine running, hands on the wheel. Lena's words kept circling back. There's a difference between surviving and living. He hated that she was right. He drove to the hardware store, clocked in, and spent the next 8 hours restocking shelves and helping customers find the right size screws. It was mindless, safe, exactly what he needed. But it didn't stop his brain from working. By the time his shift ended, Ryan had made a decision. He pulled out his phone and dialed. Lena answered on the second ring. Ryan, I want to see the car, he said. A pause. The Valkyrie. Yeah. When? Tonight? After hours. No engineers, no cameras, just me and the car. Why? Because if I'm going to even think about your offer, I need to know if I still remember how to do this. Another pause. Then, I'll arrange it. Ryan hung up before he could change his mind. Apex Velocity looked different at night. The sprawling complex was mostly dark, just a few security lights casting long shadows across the parking lot. Ryan pulled up to the main gate at 10 p.m., and the guard waved him through without a word. Lena had called ahead. She was waiting for him outside Bay 7, dressed in jeans and a black sweater, her hair down for once. She looked younger, less like a CEO. Thanks for coming, she said. Ryan didn't answer. He just walked past her into the bay. The Valkyrie sat under the lights, gleaming and perfect. Someone had cleaned it since Dubai. The carbon fiber body shone like polished glass. Ryan approached slowly, like he was meeting an old friend he wasn't sure would recognize him. He ran his hand along the rear cowling. The metal was cool under his palm. Lena stayed by the door, watching. Can I open it? Ryan asked. It's your engine. He popped the cowling and leaned in. The smell hit him first, oil, rubber, the faint tang of high-octane fuel. It was a smell he'd forgotten he missed. The engine looked immaculate. Someone had done good work maintaining it. But Ryan could see the small things. The improvised bracket he'd installed 3 weeks ago, still holding. The recalibrated timing map, still running flawlessly. He pulled a diagnostic tablet from the workbench and plugged it into the car's system. Data flooded the screen. RPM curves, fuel efficiency graphs, temperature gradients. Ryan scrolled through it all, his mind slipping back into a rhythm he hadn't felt in years. "It's running hot in the third cylinder," he said, not looking up. Lena stepped closer. "Petrov didn't mention that. He wouldn't notice, it's only a 2-degree variance, but over time it'll degrade the piston rings." "Can you fix it?" Ryan glanced at her. "I'm not your employee." "I know, I'm just asking." He looked back at the screen. Then he set the tablet down and walked to the toolbox mounted on the wall. He found a torque wrench, a set of feeler gauges, and a small can of thermal paste. "What are you doing?" Lena asked. "Adjusting the fuel injector angle. It'll drop the temp." "Right now?" "You said I could look at the car." "I'm looking." Lena didn't argue. She just pulled up a stool and sat down, watching as Ryan worked. It took him 40 minutes. He didn't talk, didn't explain, just moved through the steps with a precision that came from muscle memory. Loosen the mount, recalibrate the angle, test the flow, tighten everything back down. When he finished, he ran another diagnostic. The third cylinder temp dropped to match the others. Ryan wiped his hands on a rag. "There." Lena stared at the screen. "How did you do that so fast?" "I know this engine." "You built it 6 years ago. You remember every detail?" Ryan met her eyes. "I remember the things that matter." She was quiet for a moment, then she said, "Petrov's been working on this car for 3 years. He didn't catch that." "Petrov's good, but he's working off someone else's blueprint. I wrote the blueprint." "Why did you leave?" Ryan set the wrench down. "That's not part of this conversation." "I'm trying to understand." "Why? So you can put it in my employee file? So I can know who I'm asking to come back?" Ryan turned away. "I told you. I walked away for a reason." "Your wife?" He didn't respond. Lena stood. "I read the accident report. She was driving home from a company event. You were supposed to be with her, but you stayed late to finish a test." Ryan's jaw tightened. "Stop." "You blamed yourself." "I said stop." "But it wasn't your fault, Ryan. It was a drunk driver. You couldn't have—" Ryan spun around, his voice sharp. "You don't know anything about it." Lena held his gaze. "You're right. I don't. But I know what guilt looks like. And I know what it does to people." Ryan's hands were shaking. He shoved them into his pockets. "I need to go." "Wait. I said I need to go." He walked out of the bay without looking back. Lena stood there alone, staring at the empty space where he'd been. Ryan didn't go home. He drove to a park near the river, parked under a streetlight, and sat there with the windows down, letting the cold air clear his head. He shouldn't have come tonight, shouldn't have touched the car. Every second he spent around that engine pulled him back into a world he'd fought like hell to leave behind. But the truth was, he'd felt more alive in that garage bay than he had in 3 years, and that terrified him. His phone buzzed, a text from Lena. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have pushed." Ryan stared at the message for a long time. Then he typed back, "It's fine." Another buzz. "It's not. But thank you for tonight. The car's better because of you." Ryan didn't respond. He just set the phone down and closed his eyes. The next morning, Emma asked him if he was okay. "I'm fine," Ryan said, pouring her cereal. "You came home late." "I had something to do." "With the lady?" Ryan sighed. "Why are you so nosy?" "Because you won't tell me anything." She crunched her cereal. "Are you going to work for her again?" "I don't know." "Do you want to?" Ryan sat down across from her. "It's complicated. Grown-ups always say that when they mean yes, but they're scared." Ryan blinked. "Where'd you learn that?" "TV. You watch too much TV." Emma shrugged. "You didn't answer the question." Ryan looked at his daughter, this tiny, fierce person who saw through every wall he put up. "Yeah," he said quietly. "Maybe I want to." "Then why don't you?" "Because I'm scared I'll mess it up." Emma reached across the table and patted his hand. "You won't." "How do you know?" "Because you're really good at fixing things. You fixed my bike. You fixed the toaster. You fixed that lady's car." "It's not the same." "Why not?" Ryan didn't have an answer. Emma finished her cereal and slid out of her chair. I think you should do it. Yeah? Yeah, you've been sad for a long time. Maybe this will make you happy. She grabbed her backpack and headed for the door. Ryan sat there, staring at the empty cereal bowl, out of the mouths of 6-year-olds. 2 days later, Ryan called Lena. I have conditions, he said. I'm listening. First, I work remotely. I'm not moving to the facility full-time. I've got a daughter, and I'm not missing another school event or bedtime story because of a deadline. Done. Second, my name stays off the public credits. I don't want interviews. I don't want press. I design the systems. You guys handle the optics. Lena hesitated. Ryan, you deserve recognition. That's the deal. Take it or leave it. Fine. What else? Third, if I find a safety issue, I have authority to shut down a test or pull a car from competition. No arguments, no overrides. That's a big ask. That's non-negotiable. Lena was quiet for a moment. Then she said, Okay. Okay? You're right. Safety comes first. I'll put it in writing. Ryan exhaled. Then I'll do it. When can you start? Give me a week. I need to figure out childcare. Take 2. We'll have a workspace set up for you by then. Ryan hung up and sat on the couch, staring at the phone in his hand. He'd just agreed to step back into the fire, and he had no idea if he was ready. Eek. The first day back felt surreal. Lena had set up a private office for him on the 2nd floor, small, quiet, with a window overlooking the test track. No cameras, no foot traffic, just a desk, a computer, and a wall-mounted monitor displaying live data feeds from the garage bays. Ryan stood in the doorway, his old badge clipped to his shirt. It read, Ryan Hale, lead propulsion engineer, not Ryan Callahan. That name was buried. Maybe forever. Lena appeared behind him. What do you think? It's good. I had them pull all the design files you'll need. Everything's on the server. Ryan nodded. Thanks. Petrov wants to meet with you this afternoon. He's curious. I bet. Lena smiled slightly. He's a good guy, just protective of his work. I'm not here to step on anyone's toes. I know, but some toes are going to get stepped on anyway. She wasn't wrong. At 2 p.m., Petrov knocked on Ryan's door. He was tall, mid-40s, with graying hair and the kind of tired eyes that came from too many late nights. He held a tablet in one hand and a cup of coffee in the other. So you're the guy, Petrov said. Ryan stood. I guess I am. Petrov walked in and set his coffee on the desk. Lena says you designed the original engine. Long time ago. And you fixed the timing fault we missed. Yeah. Petrov stared at him. How? I knew where to look. That's not an answer. Ryan met his gaze. The sensor housing had a fracture. It only opened under heat and vibration. Your diagnostics wouldn't catch it because they don't simulate race conditions. Petrov frowned. We ran thermal stress tests. Not hot enough, not long enough. And you knew that how? Ryan hesitated, then he said, Because I made the same mistake when I built the first prototype. Took me 3 months to figure it out. Petrov's expression shifted, something between respect and annoyance. You could have told us, he said. I wasn't working here. You are now. Ryan nodded. I am. Petrov picked up his coffee. Fine. Let's see what you've got. They spent the next 2 hours going over the Valkyrie's current performance data. Petrov walked Ryan through every modification the team had made over the past 3 years. Tweaks to the fuel map, adjustments to the exhaust flow, a complete overhaul of the cooling system. Some of it was good. Some of it made Ryan wince. This change, Ryan said, pointing to a graph on the screen, the one you made to the air intake, it's reducing efficiency by 8%. Petrov leaned in. That's within tolerance. It's also unnecessary. You adjusted the intake to compensate for a turbo lag issue, but the lag was caused by a software glitch in the throttle response. Fix the software. You don't need the intake change. Petrov stared at the data. How do you know it's a software glitch? Because I wrote the original code, and I'm guessing someone updated it without testing the downstream effects. Petrov didn't respond. He just pulled out his phone and called someone. Yeah, it's me. Pull the throttle response logs from the last 6 months. I need to check something. He hung up. If you're right, I'm going to be pissed. You'll get over it. Petrov almost smiled. You're not what I expected. What did you expect? I don't know. Some guy with an ego the size of a building. Ryan shook his head. I'm just here to do the work. Good, Petrov said, because we've got a lot of it. By the end of the week, Ryan had reviewed every major system in the Valkyrie and identified 11 areas for improvement. None of them were catastrophic, but together they added up to a car that was running at maybe 85% of its potential. He compiled the findings into a report and sent it to Lena. She called him 10 minutes later. Is this real? She asked. Every word. You're saying we've been leaving 15% on the table? At least. Lena was quiet for a moment. Then she said, How long to implement the fixes? Depends. Some are quick. Others require parts we don't have. How long? 2 months? Maybe 3? We've got a race in 5 weeks. Ryan leaned back in his chair. Then we prioritize. Focus on the high-impact changes. Leave the rest for later. Can we win with that? I don't know, but we'll be faster than we are now. Lena exhaled. Do it. The next 3 weeks were a blur. Ryan worked 12-hour days, most of them from his home office after Emma went to bed. He'd video call with Petrov and the engineering team, walking them through changes, answering questions, troubleshooting problems in real time. It felt like the old days. The good parts, anyway. Emma noticed. You're smiling more, she said one night at dinner. Ryan blinked. I am? Yeah, it's weird. Gee, thanks, she grinned. I like it, though. Ryan reached across the table and ruffled her hair. Me too, kiddo. But the work wasn't without tension. One of the younger engineers, a guy named Marcus, pushed back hard on one of Ryan's recommendations, arguing that it would compromise the car's aerodynamics. Ryan had pulled up the simulation data, showed him the math, and said, Run the numbers yourself. If I'm wrong, we'll scrap it. Marcus did. 2 days later, he sent Ryan an email. You were right. My bad. Ryan didn't gloat. He just replied, No worries. Good catch on the drag coefficient, though. I missed that. It was a small moment, but it mattered. By the time race week arrived, the Valkyrie was faster, sharper, and more reliable than it had ever been. Ryan didn't go to the track. He stayed home watching the race on TV with Emma curled up next to him on the couch. Miguel Cortez finished second. Close enough to taste victory. Close enough to know they were on the right path. When the checkered flag dropped, Emma looked up at Ryan. Did you help with that? Ryan smiled. A little. Cool. That night, after Emma was asleep, Ryan's phone buzzed. A text from Lena. We couldn't have done this without you. Ryan stared at the message. Then he typed back. Yes, you could have. But I'm glad I was part of it. Another buzz. Thank you, Ryan, for coming back. Ryan set the phone down. For the first time in 6 years, he felt like he was exactly where he needed to be. The problem started 3 weeks after the second-place finish. Ryan was in his home office reviewing telemetry data from a test run when his phone rang. Petrov. We've got an issue, Petrov said without preamble. Ryan sat up. What kind of issue? The kind that makes no sense. We ran the Valkyrie through a full simulation this morning. The engine's showing a power drop in the high RPM range, 5% loss across the board. That's impossible. We just rebuilt the intake system. I know, but the data doesn't lie. Can you come in? Ryan glanced at the clock. It was 2 p.m. Emma wouldn't be home from school for another hour. Give me 30 minutes, he said. He grabbed his jacket and keys, sent a quick text to his neighbor, asking her to pick up Emma, and drove to Apex faster than he probably should have. When he arrived, the engineering bay was chaos. Half the team crowded around a bank of monitors, voices overlapping, everyone talking at once. Lena stood off to the side, arms crossed, face tight. Ryan walked straight to the main screen. The power curve graph stared back at him, the red line dipping where it should have climbed. Show me the raw sensor data, he said. Petrov pulled it up. Ryan scanned the numbers, his brain running through possibilities. When did this start? Ryan asked. 2 days ago, Marcus said from across the room. We noticed it during a routine check. And you didn't call me then? Marcus shifted. We thought we could handle it. Ryan didn't respond. He just kept staring at the data. Something was off. The power loss was consistent, predictable. almost too predictable. Pull up the fuel flow readings, Ryan said. Petrov typed. The graph appeared. Ryan leaned closer. There, see that? See what? The fuel pressure's spiking every 0.3 seconds. It's subtle, but it's there. Petrov squinted. That's within normal variance. It shouldn't be spiking at all. The regulator's failing. We replaced the regulator last month. Then you got a bad part. Lena stepped forward. How sure are you? Ryan met her eyes. Very. She nodded. Marcus, pull the regulator. Let's see. It took 20 minutes to disassemble the fuel system and extract the regulator. When Marcus held it up to the light, Ryan saw it immediately. A hairline crack in the diaphragm seal. Son of a bitch, Petrov muttered. Ryan took the part, turning it over in his hands. Who's your supplier? Cortec, Marcus said. We've used them for years. Not anymore. Ryan handed the regulator to Lena. This is the third defective part I've seen from them in 6 months. Someone's cutting corners. Lena's jaw tightened. I'll handle it. We need a replacement by tomorrow, Petrov said. The car's scheduled for track testing in 3 days. I'll find one, Ryan said, but I want to inspect it personally before it goes in. Petrov nodded. Fair enough. Ryan left the bay and walked outside, pulling out his phone. He scrolled through his contacts, people he hadn't spoken to in years, and found the name he was looking for. Derek Yang, former colleague from Vantage, now running his own parts manufacturing company. Ryan dialed. Derek picked up on the 4th ring. Ryan Callahan, Derek said, voice warm with surprise. I heard you disappeared off the face of the earth. Something like that. What's it been? 5 years? 6. Damn. So what brings you back to the land of the living? I need a favor. Fuel pressure regulator. High spec. I need it by tomorrow. Derek whistled. That's tight. What happened to your supplier? They're selling junk. Cortec? Yeah. Derek laughed. Join the club. Half the teams in the industry have blacklisted them. I can get you a regulator, but it'll cost. How much? $3,000, and that's the friend price. Ryan winced. Done. Send it to Apex Velocity. Attention, Ryan Hale. There was a pause. Hale? I thought your name was Callahan. Long story. Fair enough. I'll have it shipped overnight. Thanks, Derek. Hey, Ryan. Yeah? Good to hear your voice again, man. I mean it. Ryan swallowed. You too. He hung up and stood there for a moment, staring at the test track in the distance. 6 years ago, he'd burned every bridge in this industry, cut ties, changed his name, walked away from everyone who knew him. And now, piece by piece, those bridges were rebuilding themselves. He wasn't sure how he felt about that. Okay. The regulator arrived the next morning. Ryan inspected it personally, running it through 3 separate tests before declaring it good. They installed it that afternoon. By evening, the power curve was back to normal. But Ryan couldn't shake the feeling that something else was wrong. That night, he sat in his home office long after Emma had gone to bed, pulling up supplier records, parts inventories, maintenance logs. Cortec had been Apex's primary parts supplier for 4 years. They provided everything from fuel regulators to sensor housings to gaskets. And the more Ryan dug, the more defects he found. Small things. Things that wouldn't show up in a standard inspection. A seal that wore out 10% faster than spec. A sensor housing with microfractures. A gasket made from substandard material. None of it catastrophic on its own. But together? Over time? Ryan's stomach turned. He pulled up the maintenance records for the last 2 years and cross-referenced them with race data. 3 mechanical failures. 2 during testing. 1 during an actual race, which had ended Miguel's season early last year. All 3 failures traced back to Cortec parts. Ryan sat back, staring at the screen. This wasn't just bad luck. This was negligence. Maybe worse. He grabbed his phone and called Lena. She answered on the 2nd ring. Ryan? It's almost midnight. I need you to look at something. Tonight. Can it wait until... No. There was a pause. Then, I'll be there in 20 minutes. We'll wait. Lena showed up at Ryan's apartment in jeans and a hoodie, hair pulled back in a messy bun. She looked tired. This better be important, she said, stepping inside. It is. Ryan led her to his office and pulled up the data on his laptop. Cortec's been selling you defective parts for 2 years, he said. Maybe longer. Lena leaned over his shoulder, scanning the screen. How do you know? I cross-referenced failure reports with supplier records. Every major mechanical issue we've had traces back to them. That could be coincidence. It's not. Ryan pulled up another file. Look at this. Last year, Miguel's engine seized during the Milan race. The official report blamed driver error, but the failure originated in a fuel injector, a Cortec part that had a defect in the nozzle assembly. The defect wasn't caught because it only shows up under sustained high pressure. Lena's face went pale. You're saying they almost killed Miguel? I'm saying they sold you a part that failed under race conditions, and they're still selling you parts. Lena straightened. Why would they do that? Because it's cheaper. Cutting corners on materials, skipping quality control checks. They save money, pass the savings on to you, and hope nothing blows up. And when it does, they blame the team, or the driver, or bad luck. Lena was quiet for a long time. Then she said, Do you have proof? Not the kind that holds up in court, but I have enough to warrant an internal investigation. Lena pulled out her phone. I'm calling our legal team. At midnight? This can't wait. She stepped into the hallway. Ryan heard her voice, low and sharp, talking to someone on the other end. When she came back, her expression was hard. Legal's on it, she said. They'll start pulling records in the morning. If what you're saying is true, we're terminating the contract. Good. Lena looked at him. How did you even find this? Ryan shrugged. I couldn't sleep. So you just started digging? Something felt off. I followed the thread. Lena shook her head. You realize most people wouldn't do that, right? Most people would just fix the immediate problem and move on. I'm not most people. No, Lena said quietly. You're not. She sat down on the edge of his desk. Ryan, I need to ask you something. Okay? Why did you really come back? Ryan frowned. You asked me to. I know, but you could have said no. You could have stayed in your quiet life, stocking shelves, raising your daughter. No one would have blamed you. So why? Ryan looked away. I don't know. Yes, you do. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, Because I spent 6 years trying to convince myself I didn't care anymore, that I could just walk away and be fine. But the truth is, I never stopped caring, and when you showed me that engine, when I saw what it had become, I couldn't just let it go. Lena nodded slowly. You know what I think? What? I think you didn't come back for the engine. You came back for yourself. Ryan didn't respond. Lena stood. Thank you for this, for all of it. Just doing my job. No, you're doing more than that. She left, and Ryan sat alone in his office, staring at the data on his screen. Maybe she was right. Maybe he had come back for himself. But that didn't make it any less terrifying. What? The investigation into Cortec took 3 days. Apex's legal team pulled every contract, every invoice, every inspection report. They brought in an independent auditor to examine the parts currently in inventory. The results were damning. 40% of Cortec's parts failed to meet the specifications outlined in the contract, some by small margins, some by a lot. Lena called an emergency meeting with the executive board. Ryan wasn't invited, but Petrov was, and he filled Ryan in afterward. She tore them apart, Petrov said, leaning against Ryan's office door. Showed them the data, the failure reports, everything. Half the board wanted to sue. The other half wanted to keep it quiet to avoid bad press. What did Lena say? She said if we keep it quiet, we're complicit, and if we're complicit, we're no better than Cortec. Ryan looked up. So what happens now? We terminate the contract publicly, and we notify the racing commission so other teams know what they're dealing with. That's going to make waves. Big ones, Petrov grinned. Lena doesn't care. She said we're not in the business of covering up near-fatal mistakes. Ryan felt something loosen in his chest. Good. Petrov pushed off the doorframe. You know, when you first showed up, I thought you were going to be a pain in the ass. And now? Now I think you're the best pain in the ass we've ever had. Ryan smiled. I'll take it. Batates. The fallout from Cortec happened fast. Within a week, 3 other racing teams came forward with similar complaints. The Racing Commission launched a formal investigation. Cortex CEO resigned under pressure. Apex's name stayed clean, mostly because Lena had been proactive about going public. But the real work was just beginning. Ryan spent the next 2 weeks vetting new suppliers, rebuilding the parts inventory from scratch, and implementing a quality control protocol that every component had to pass before it touched the car. It was exhausting, but it was necessary. One afternoon, Marcus knocked on Ryan's door. "Got a minute?" he asked. "Sure." Marcus stepped inside, holding a tablet. "I've been going through the old maintenance logs, the ones from before you came back. And? There's a pattern. Cortec parts started failing more frequently about 18 months ago, right around the time someone on our team approved a cost reduction proposal." Ryan's stomach dropped. "Who approved it?" Marcus hesitated. "The former head of operations, a guy named Philip Stern." "Where's he now?" "He left the company 6 months ago, took a job with a supplier in Germany." Ryan leaned back in his chair. "Let me guess. Cortec." Marcus nodded. "He's their VP of Client Relations." Ryan closed his eyes. "He sold us out." "Looks like it. He pushed for the cost cuts, knowing the parts were substandard. Probably got a kickback for every contract." "Does Lena know?" "Not yet. I wanted to run it by you first." Ryan opened his eyes. "Show her. All of it." Marcus left, and Ryan sat there, feeling the weight of it settle over him. This wasn't just negligence. It was corruption. And it had almost killed someone. Of course. That night, Ryan picked Emma up from her friend's house and took her to the diner down the street. She ordered pancakes for dinner, which Ryan allowed because he was too tired to argue. "You look sad," Emma said, pouring syrup over her stack. "I'm not sad, just thinking." "About work?" "Yeah." Emma took a bite. "Is it bad?" "It's complicated." "Grown-up complicated or actually complicated?" Ryan smiled despite himself. "Actually complicated." Emma nodded seriously. "Do you need help? From you?" "Yeah, I'm good at solving problems." "I know you are, kiddo, but this one's on me." She reached across the table and patted his hand. "Well, if you change your mind, I'm here." Ryan squeezed her hand. "Thanks, Em." When they got home, Emma went straight to bed, exhausted from her play date. Ryan tucked her in, kissed her forehead, and stood in the doorway for a moment, watching her sleep. She was the only thing that made sense anymore. His phone buzzed. A text from Lena. "Marcus showed me the logs. We need to talk." Ryan texted back. "Tomorrow. Office." He didn't sleep much that night. It's. The next morning, Lena called Ryan into her office. She looked like she hadn't slept either. "Philip Stern," she said, the moment Ryan sat down. "How long has he been working for Cortec?" 6 months, right after he left here. "And he was the one who pushed the cost reduction deal?" "According to the records, yes." Lena's hands clenched into fists on the desk. "That bastard! He sold us out for a paycheck." "It looks that way. Do we have enough to prove it?" Ryan hesitated. "Maybe. The timeline's suspicious, and if you subpoena Cortec's internal communications, you might find something, but it's not going to be easy." Lena leaned back in her chair, staring at the ceiling. "I trusted him. He'd been with the company for 8 years. I thought he had our best interests at heart. People change when money's involved. That's not an excuse." "I didn't say it was." Lena looked at him. "What would you do?" Ryan considered. "I'd report him to the commission, let them handle the investigation, and I'd make sure every team in the industry knows what he did. That'll destroy his career. He almost destroyed someone's life." Lena was quiet for a long time. Then she nodded. "You're right. I'll make the call." Bruseg. The Racing Commission moved faster than Ryan expected. Within 2 weeks, they'd launched a formal investigation into Philip Stern and Cortec. Subpoenas were issued, emails were uncovered, financial records were examined, and the truth came out. Stern had been taking kickbacks from Cortec for 18 months. $50,000 total, paid in installments, in exchange for steering Apex's contracts toward them and downplaying quality concerns. The commission banned him from the industry for life. Cortec's business collapsed within a month. Apex, meanwhile, emerged stronger. Lena's transparency had earned the company respect. Other teams started reaching out, asking for advice on supplier vetting and quality control. Ryan found himself fielding calls from engineers he'd never met, walking them through his protocols, sharing what he'd learned. It felt strange. Good, but strange. One evening, Petrov stopped by Ryan's office with 2 beers. "Thought you could use one," he said, handing Ryan a bottle. "It's 4 p.m. It's 5 o'clock somewhere." Ryan took the beer. "Thanks." Petrov sat down. "You know, when Lena first told me she was bringing you back, I thought it was a mistake." "Why?" "Because I didn't want to admit someone could be better at this than me." Ryan raised an eyebrow. "And now?" "Now, I'm just glad you're on our side." Petrov took a swig. "You saved us, man. Not just from the bad parts, from ourselves. We were so focused on winning, we forgot to pay attention to the details. You reminded us why those details matter." Ryan didn't know what to say. Petrov stood. "Anyway, thanks for everything." He left and Ryan sat there, staring at the beer in his hand. For the first time in 6 years, he felt like he was exactly where he was supposed to be, doing the work that mattered, with people who gave a damn. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. Tabasaktan. That weekend, Ryan took Emma to the go-kart track. She'd been begging to go for weeks, and he figured they both could use the break. Emma was fearless behind the wheel, tearing around the track with a grin so wide it made Ryan's chest ache. After her 3rd lap, she pulled up next to him, yanking off her helmet. "That was awesome," she shouted. "You're fast, kiddo." "I know." She hopped out of the cart. "Can I do it again?" "1 more lap, then we get ice cream." "Deal." She took off, and Ryan stood there, watching her disappear around the corner. His phone buzzed. A text from Lena. "Race confirmed for next month. Japan. The car's ready." "Are you?" Ryan stared at the message. Then he looked at Emma, laughing as she sped past. He typed back, "Yeah, I'm ready." The call came 3 days before they were supposed to fly to Japan. Ryan was in the garage bay, running final checks on the Valkyrie's cooling system, when Petrov appeared in the doorway, face ashen. "We've got a problem," Petrov said. Ryan straightened, wiping his hands on a rag. "What now?" "Miguel's out." "Out? What do you mean out?" "He crashed during practice this morning. Broke his collarbone. He's done for the season." Ryan felt his stomach drop. "Is he okay?" "He'll heal, but he can't race." Petrov ran a hand through his hair. "Lena's scrambling to find a replacement driver. We've got 72 hours. "Who's available?" "That's the problem. Everyone worth hiring is already contracted. The only free agents are rookies or has-beens." Petrov's voice cracked slightly. "We might have to pull out." "No." Ryan's voice was sharp. "We don't pull out. Not after everything we've done." "Ryan, without a driver, find someone. Anyone. I don't care if they're rusty. We can work with rusty." Petrov stared at him. "You really think we can win with a substitute driver?" "I think we can finish, and right now, that's enough." Petrov nodded slowly. "I'll tell Lena." After he left, Ryan stood there, staring at the Valkyrie. All that work, all those late nights, and now it might not even matter. He pulled out his phone and dialed Lena. She answered immediately. "Ryan, I know. I'm working on it. What are our options?" "Slim to none. I've called 6 drivers in the last hour. 3 are under contract. 2 aren't interested. 1 wants double our budget." "What about someone who's retired?" "Like who?" Ryan hesitated. "What about Caroline Chen?" There was a pause. "The Caroline Chen? She's been retired for 3 years. She's also the best driver of her generation. If anyone can handle the Valkyrie on short notice, it's her." "Ryan, she walked away from racing. She said she'd never come back." "Did you ask her?" "No, because—" "Ask her." Lena was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Fine, I'll make the call, but don't get your hopes up." Ryan hung up and went back to work, but his mind kept circling back to Caroline. He'd never met her, but he'd watched her race when he was still at Vantage. She was fearless, precise, and smart. The kind of driver who didn't just react to the car, she understood it. If anyone could step into the Valkyrie and make it sing, it was her. But retirement was retirement for a reason. People didn't walk away from something they loved unless the cost had gotten too high. That evening, Ryan got home to find Emma sitting at the kitchen table, surrounded by schoolwork. "Hey, kiddo," he said, dropping his keys on the counter. "How was your day?" "Fine." She didn't look up from her worksheet. Ryan frowned. "You okay?" "Yeah." "You don't sound okay." Emma sighed and set down her pencil. "Mia said her dad's taking her to Disney World next month." "That's nice." "Yeah." Emma picked at the corner of her paper. "I told her we never go anywhere." Ryan's chest tightened. It's fine. I know you're busy with work. I get it." Ryan sat down across from her. "Hey, look at me." She did, reluctantly. "I know I've been working a lot lately," Ryan said, "and I know it's not fair to you. But it's not because I don't want to spend time with you. You're the most important thing in my life. You know that, right?" Emma nodded, but her eyes were glassy. "Tell you what," Ryan said. "After this race in Japan, we'll go somewhere. Just the two of us. You pick the place." Emma's face brightened slightly. "Really? Really? Can we go to the beach?" "Absolutely." She smiled. "Okay." Ryan reached across the table and ruffled her hair. "Now, finish your homework. Then we'll watch a movie. Can we watch the one with the talking dog? We've seen it 5 times. "So?" Ryan laughed. "Fine. Talking dog it is." But as Emma went back to her worksheet, Ryan felt the weight of the promise settle on his shoulders. He'd been making promises to her for 6 years, and most of the time he kept them. But this time felt different. This time there was too much at stake. "What?" The next morning, Lena called. "Caroline said yes," she said, and Ryan could hear the disbelief in her voice. "What?" "She said yes. She's flying in tomorrow." Ryan leaned back in his chair. "What changed her mind?" "I don't know. She just said she'd been following what we've been doing, the Cortec thing, the transparency stuff, and she wanted to be part of it." "That's it?" "That's it." Ryan didn't buy it. People didn't come out of retirement for vague ideals. There was something else. But whatever it was, it didn't matter right now. "When does she arrive?" Ryan asked. "Tomorrow at noon. I'm having her come straight to the facility. We'll run her through simulations, get her comfortable with the car." "Good. I'll be there." "Ryan, one more thing." "Yeah?" "She asked about you." Ryan frowned. "Me?" "She wanted to know who designed the engine. When I told her it was you, she said she'd heard of Ryan Callahan." Ryan's blood went cold. "What did you tell her?" "The truth. That you go by Hale now, that you've been with us for a few months. She didn't push, but I got the sense she knows more than she's letting on." Ryan closed his eyes. "Understood." He hung up and sat there for a long time, staring at nothing. Caroline Chen knew who he was, which meant his past wasn't as buried as he thought. Caroline walked into the facility like she owned the place. She was in her mid-30s, tall and lean, with short dark hair and the kind of confidence that came from spending years at the top of her field. She wore jeans, a leather jacket, and sunglasses she didn't bother to take off until she was inside. Lena met her at the entrance. Ryan hung back, watching from the observation deck above the garage bay. "Caroline?" Lena said, extending a hand. "Thank you for coming." Caroline shook it. "Thanks for asking." "I'll be honest, I didn't think you'd say yes. Neither did I." Caroline's gaze swept the facility, taking everything in. "But I saw what you did with Cortec. That took guts. I wanted to see if the rest of your operation matched the talk." "And?" Caroline smiled slightly. "I'll let you know after I drive the car." Lena led her down to the garage bay, and Ryan followed at a distance. When Caroline saw the Valkyrie, she stopped. "That's the car?" "That's the car." Caroline walked around it slowly, running her hand along the carbon fiber body. "It's beautiful." "It's fast," Petrov said, stepping forward. "Faster than anything we've built before." Caroline glanced at him. "You Petrov?" "Yeah." "I've heard good things." She looked back at the car. "Who's the lead engineer?" Petrov gestured to Ryan, who was standing near the workbench. "That'd be him." Caroline turned, and for a moment she just looked at him. "Ryan Callahan," she said quietly. Ryan didn't move. "It's Hale now." Right. Caroline walked toward him, hands in her pockets. I raced against a car you designed once. 6 years ago. It was the fastest thing I'd ever seen. It lost. Only because the driver made a mistake. The car was perfect. She stopped a few feet away. I always wondered what happened to you. Ryan met her gaze. I walked away. Why? Personal reasons. Caroline studied him for a moment, then nodded. Fair enough. She turned back to Lena. So, when do I get to drive? One. They put Caroline in the simulator first. Ryan watched from the control room as she ran through a virtual version of the Japan circuit. Her inputs were smooth, precise, no wasted movement. She took the corners tight, braked late, and pushed the car harder than most drivers would on their first run. She's good, Petrov muttered beside him. She's better than good, Ryan said. After 30 minutes, Caroline climbed out of the simulator and joined them in the control room. The car handles like a dream, she said, but the throttle response is twitchy in the mid-range. Ryan pulled up the data. That's intentional. We tuned it for Miguel's driving style. He prefers a sharper response. Can you soften it? For you? For me? Ryan glanced at Lena, who nodded. Give me an hour, Ryan said. He went down to the garage bay and started adjusting the throttle map. It wasn't a huge change, just a slight smoothing of the acceleration curve, but it would make a difference for someone like Caroline, who drove with a lighter touch. When he finished, he ran a diagnostic to make sure everything else was still balanced. Caroline appeared beside him. You work fast. Ryan didn't look up. Had a lot of practice. I can tell. She leaned against the workbench. Can I ask you something? Depends on the question. Why'd you really come back? Ryan set down the diagnostic tablet. You don't quit. I'm curious. About what? About why someone with your talent would walk away, and then come back years later under a different name. Ryan finally looked at her. You don't know me. No, but I know what it's like to lose something and spend years trying to figure out how to live with it. Ryan's jaw tightened. Is that why you retired? Caroline's expression didn't change. Maybe. They stood there in silence for a moment. Then Caroline said, Look, I'm not trying to dig into your past. I just want to know if you're here because you want to be or because you're running from something. Does it matter? It does if I'm about to trust my life to a car you designed. Ryan met her gaze. I'm here because this is the only thing I know how to do, and because I'm tired of pretending I don't care. Caroline nodded slowly. Good enough. She pushed off the workbench and headed back toward the simulator. Ryan watched her go, then turned back to the car. He'd spent 6 years trying to bury the person he used to be. But maybe the problem wasn't the person. Maybe it was the fear. Match. They flew to Japan 2 days later. Emma stayed with Ryan's neighbor, a kind woman named Mrs. Alvarez, who'd helped him countless times over the years. Emma wasn't thrilled about it, but she understood. You'll call me every day, right? Emma asked as Ryan packed his suitcase. Every day. And you'll bring me back something cool? I'll try. Emma hugged him. Be safe, Dad. Ryan held her tight. Always. The flight was long. Ryan spent most of it reviewing race data, but his mind kept wandering. Japan was where he'd raced for the first time as a lead engineer, 12 years ago. Back when he was still Ryan Callahan, still married, still convinced he could balance everything. He'd been wrong about that. But maybe he could get it right this time. When they landed in Tokyo, the humidity hit him like a wall. The team checked into the hotel, and Ryan barely had time to drop his bags before Lena called a meeting in the conference room. All right, she said, standing at the head of the table. We've got 3 days until race day. Caroline's had limited time with the car, so we're running practice sessions every morning. Ryan, I need you on site for all of them. Done. Petrov, you're handling logistics. Marcus, you're on data analysis. Lena looked around the room. We're the underdogs here. No one expects us to finish in the top 5. But we didn't come all this way to be mediocre. We came to prove something. What are we proving? Marcus asked. Lena smiled. That we're not afraid to do things right. Bob. The first practice session was rough. Caroline was fast, but she was also rusty. She missed her braking points twice, overshot a corner, and spun out on the back straight. Ryan watched from the pit, his stomach in knots. When she came in, she yanked off her helmet, sweat dripping down her face. That sucked, she said. You're out of practice, Ryan said. Yeah, no kidding. But you're not slow. You just need to trust the car. Caroline wiped her face with a towel. The car's fine. It's me. I'm second-guessing every move. Then stop second-guessing. Easy for you to say. Ryan crouched down beside her. Look, I know what it's like to walk away from something and then come back. You feel like you don't belong anymore, like you're an imposter, but you're not. You're here because you're the best, so stop thinking and just drive. Caroline stared at him. Then she nodded. Okay. She went back out. This time she was faster. Not perfect, but better. By the end of the day, she'd posted the 8th fastest time. Ryan texted Emma that night. Day 1 done. Miss you. She replied immediately. Miss you too. Did the car go fast? Really fast. Cool. Bring me a souvenir. Ryan smiled. Already on it. The second practice session was better. Caroline found her rhythm. She was smooth, controlled, and fast, really fast. By midday, she'd climbed to 5th in the timesheets. The other teams started paying attention. That evening, Ryan was in the garage bay, checking the tire wear, when a man in a tailored suit approached. Ryan Callahan. Ryan looked up. The man was in his 50s, silver hair, expensive watch. Ryan didn't recognize him. It's Hale, Ryan said. The man smiled. Right, Hale, I'm David Brennan. I run Titan Motorsport. Ryan knew the name. Titan was one of the biggest teams in the sport. They'd won 3 championships in the last 5 years. What do you want? Ryan asked. To talk. I've been watching your car. It's impressive. Thanks. I also heard about the Cortex situation. That took guts, going public like that. Ryan didn't respond. Brennan leaned against the workbench. I'll cut to the chase. I want you to come work for me. Lead engineer. Full creative control. Salary's negotiable. I'm not interested. You haven't heard the offer. I don't need to. I'm happy where I am. Brennan's smile faded. Apex is a good team, but they're not going to win championships. Not with their budget. You know that. Maybe, but they're honest. Honesty doesn't win races. Ryan met his gaze. It wins the things that matter. Brennan straightened. Think about it. You know where to find me. He walked away and Ryan stood there staring at the toolbox in his hands. He'd been offered jobs before. Better pay, better resources, better everything. But none of them had felt right. This did. Race day arrived. The circuit was packed. 50,000 people in the stands, millions more watching on TV. Ryan stood in the pit watching the cars line up on the grid. The Valkyrie sat in 8th position, right where Caroline had qualified. Lena appeared beside him. You good? Yeah. Caroline? She's ready. Lena nodded. Whatever happens today, I want you to know this wouldn't have been possible without you. Ryan didn't know what to say, so he just nodded. The race started. Caroline held her position through the first lap, then the second. On lap 10, she passed the car in 7th. By lap 20, she was in 5th. Ryan watched the data feed, his heart pounding. The car was performing perfectly. No faults, no warnings, just clean, fast laps. On lap 35, Caroline radioed in. The engine feels off. Ryan's stomach dropped. What do you mean off? I don't know. It's subtle, like there's a hesitation in the throttle. Ryan pulled up the telemetry. Everything looked normal, but Caroline didn't make mistakes like this. If she felt something, it was real. Pit on the next lap, Ryan said. We'll check it. Caroline came in. The crew swarmed the car, but they couldn't find anything wrong. Ryan leaned into the cockpit. Describe it again. It's like the engine stutters for half a second when I hit full throttle. Just a tiny lag. Ryan thought fast. A lag like that could be a sensor issue, or a fuel delivery problem. Or, wait. He pulled up the throttle response map on his tablet. There. A tiny glitch in the code. Something that wouldn't show up in a static diagnostic, but under race conditions, it would cause a microsecond delay. I see it, Ryan said. Give me 30 seconds. He plugged into the car's computer and rewrote the line of code on the spot. Try it now, he said. Caroline revved the engine. That's it. It's gone. Go! She tore out of the pit. She'd lost 20 seconds, dropped from 5th to 9th. But she didn't give up. Lap by lap, she clawed her way back. By lap 50, she was in 6th. By lap 60, 5th. On the final lap, she passed the car in 4th and crossed the finish line in 4th place. Not a win, but a statement. When Caroline climbed out of the car, she pulled off her helmet and grinned. "That was fun," she said.
Ryan laughed. "You're insane." "Maybe." Lena hugged them both. "We did it." And for the first time in 6 years, Ryan felt like he was exactly where he belonged.
The flight home felt different. Ryan sat by the window, watching the clouds pass below, the 4th place trophy sitting in the overhead compartment above him. 4th wasn't first, but it was honest, and somehow that mattered more. Across the aisle, Caroline was asleep, headphones on, face relaxed in a way Ryan hadn't seen during the race. She told him after the podium ceremony that she'd forgotten what it felt like to push a car that hard, to trust the machine under her completely. "I thought I was done with this," she'd said. "Thought I'd moved on. But standing on that podium today, I realized I never really let it go." Ryan had understood that better than she knew. Lena was a few rows back, typing furiously on her laptop, probably fielding emails from sponsors and press. The 4th place finish had generated more attention than anyone expected. Not because of the position, but because of the story behind it. The substitute driver, the rebuilt engine, the team that had exposed corruption and refused to cut corners. People loved an underdog. Ryan pulled out his phone and scrolled through the photos Emma had sent him while he was gone. Her at the park. Her eating ice cream. Her holding up a drawing she'd made of a race car with the words, "Go Dad," written across the top in crooked letters. His chest tightened. He typed a message. "Landing in 4 hours. Can't wait to see you." She replied almost instantly. "Did you win?" Ryan smiled. "We got 4th place. That's still good, right?" "Yeah, that's still good." "Cool. I made you a cake. Mrs. Alvarez helped." "You didn't have to do that. I wanted to." "It has sprinkles." Ryan laughed quietly. "Can't wait." He put the phone down and closed his eyes, but sleep didn't come. His mind kept circling back to the race. The moment Caroline had radioed in about the throttle hesitation, the 30 seconds he'd had to find and fix a problem that could have ended their day, he'd done it. But it had been close. Too close. And that was the thing about this work. It was never finished. There was always another fault to find, another system to optimize, another crisis waiting just around the corner. But for the first time in years, Ryan didn't feel overwhelmed by that. He felt ready. Emma was waiting at the airport with Mrs. Alvarez, holding a handmade sign that said, "Welcome home, best dad." The moment Ryan stepped through the arrivals gate, she ran at him full speed. He dropped his bag and caught her, lifting her off the ground. "I missed you so much," Emma said, squeezing his neck. "Missed you too, kiddo." She pulled back and looked at him seriously. "Did you bring me a souvenir?" Ryan laughed. "I did." He set her down and unzipped his carry-on, pulling out a small box. Inside was a delicate wooden puzzle box, the kind sold in the markets near the circuit. Emma's eyes lit up. "What is it?" "It's a puzzle. You have to figure out how to open it." "Is there something inside?" "Maybe." Emma immediately started twisting and turning the box, her tongue poking out in concentration. Mrs. Alvarez smiled at Ryan. "She's been asking about you every hour." "Thanks for watching her." "Anytime. She's a good kid." They drove home, Emma chattering nonstop about everything she'd done while he was gone. She'd finished her book report. She'd beaten her friend Noah at checkers 3 times. She'd learned how to make scrambled eggs without burning them. Ryan listened, soaking in every word. When they got home, the apartment smelled like vanilla and sugar. A lopsided cake sat on the kitchen counter, covered in rainbow sprinkles and white frosting. "I made it myself," Emma said proudly. "Well, Mrs. Alvarez helped with the oven part, but I did the decorating." "It's perfect," Ryan said. "Can we eat it now?" "After dinner." Emma groaned but didn't argue. They ate spaghetti at the kitchen table, and Emma told him about the movie she'd watched, and the new girl in her class who had a ferret, and how she'd finally figured out how to do a cartwheel. Ryan just smiled and nodded, grateful for every mundane, beautiful detail. After dinner, they ate cake. Emma had 2 slices. Ryan had 1. It was too sweet and slightly undercooked in the middle, but it was the best thing he'd tasted all week. That night, Ryan tucked Emma into bed and sat on the edge of her mattress. "Dad?" she said, looking up at him. "Yeah? Are you happy?" Ryan blinked. "What do you mean?" "You seem different, like, in a good way. You smile more now." Ryan's throat tightened. "Yeah, kiddo, I think I am." "Good," she yawned. "You deserve to be happy." Ryan leaned down and kissed her forehead. "So do you." "I know. I'm awesome," Ryan laughed. "Yes, you are." He turned off the light and stood in the doorway for a moment, watching her settle into sleep. 6 years ago, he'd thought happiness was something he'd lost forever, something that had died in a car accident on a rainy highway. But standing there now, watching his daughter breathe softly in the dark, Ryan realized he'd been wrong. Happiness wasn't something you found once and kept forever. It was something you built, piece by piece, day by day, and sometimes you had to lose everything to remember how. The next morning, Ryan drove to the Apex facility. Lena had called an all-hands meeting, and the conference room was packed when he arrived. Engineers, mechanics, logistics coordinators, everyone who'd been part of the Japan trip, plus a few who hadn't. Lena stood at the front, looking tired but energized. "All right, everyone," she said. "I know we just got back, but I wanted to talk while it's still fresh. Japan was a success, not just because we finished fourth, but because we proved something. We proved that doing things the right way, the hard way, actually works." A few people clapped. Lena smiled. "But we're not done," she continued. "We've got 3 more races this season, and next season we're aiming higher. I want wins. I want podiums. I want people to know that Apex Velocity stands for something." She paused, looking around the room. "And to do that, we need to keep building, keep improving, keep holding ourselves to a higher standard." Her gaze landed on Ryan, "which is why I'm promoting Ryan to chief engineer." The room erupted in applause. Ryan blinked. "What?" Lena grinned. "You heard me. Petrov's moving to deputy chief. You'll oversee all propulsion and systems engineering. Full authority. Your name on everything." Ryan shook his head. "Lena, I told you. I know what you told me, but you've earned this, and the team needs it." She looked at him steadily. "So what do you say?" Ryan glanced around the room. Petrov was smiling. Marcus gave him a thumbs up. Caroline, who'd stayed on as a consultant, nodded approvingly from the back. Ryan exhaled. "Okay." More applause. Lena walked over and shook his hand. "Congratulations." "I still don't want press interviews. I'll handle the press. You handle the cars." "Deal." Shussing. The rest of the season passed in a blur. Ryan threw himself into the work. Not the way he used to, obsessively, to the exclusion of everything else, but with a focus that felt sustainable. He set boundaries. He left work at 6 every day to pick up Emma from school. He took weekends off. He said no to after-hours calls unless it was an emergency. And the crazy thing was, the team didn't fall apart. If anything, it got stronger. Petrov thrived in his new role, handling day-to-day operations while Ryan focused on the big-picture engineering. Marcus stepped up as a lead analyst, catching problems before they became crises. Caroline stayed on as a part-time consultant, mentoring younger drivers and giving feedback on handling dynamics. They finished the season with 2 more fourth-place finishes and 1 third. Not championship level, but consistent, reliable, honest. The press started calling them the Integrity Team. Ryan hated the nickname, but he didn't argue. One evening, in late November, Ryan was in his office reviewing designs for the next season's engine when Lena knocked on his door. "Got a minute?" she asked. "Sure." She came in and sat down across from him. "I've been thinking." "About what?" "About the future, long term." She leaned forward. "I want to build something here, Ryan. Not just a racing team, something bigger. A company that prioritizes transparency, safety, innovation. A place where the best people want to work because they know they won't be asked to compromise." Ryan set down his pen. "That's ambitious." "I know, but I think we can do it. With you leading the engineering side and me handling the business side, we can set a new standard in this industry." Ryan was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "What happens when we make a mistake?" Lena frowned. "What do you mean?" "I mean, we're going to screw up eventually, miss a fault, make a bad call. Hurt someone, even if we don't mean to. What happens then? Lena didn't flinch. We own it, publicly. We fix it, and we do better next time. Ryan nodded slowly. Okay, then I'm in. Lena smiled. Good, because I already put your name on the org chart. Ryan laughed. Of course you did.
That's, das.
That Christmas, Ryan took Emma to the beach. They drove down the coast to a small town neither of them had been to before, stayed in a cheap motel, and spent 3 days doing nothing but building sandcastles, eating ice cream, and watching the waves. On the last day, they sat on the beach at sunset, Emma leaning against Ryan's shoulder. This was the best trip ever, she said. Yeah? Yeah. She picked up a shell and turned it over in her hands. Can we come back next year? Absolutely. Emma was quiet for a moment. Then she said, Dad? Yeah, kiddo? I'm proud of you. Ryan's throat tightened. For what? For being brave. You were sad for a long time, but you're not anymore. And I think that takes a lot of bravery. Ryan wrapped his arm around her. You know what? I'm proud of you too. For what? I'm just a kid. For being the best kid I know. Emma grinned. Obviously. They sat there as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. And for the first time in 6 years, Ryan felt at peace. Not because everything was perfect. It wasn't. There were still hard days, still moments when he thought about his wife and the life they'd planned together. But he'd learned something important. You can't outrun grief. You can't bury it or ignore it or pretend it doesn't exist. You can only carry it. And sometimes, if you're lucky, you find people who help you carry it, who remind you that loss doesn't mean the end, that broken things can be rebuilt, that starting over isn't the same as giving up. Ryan looked down at Emma, who was now drawing patterns in the sand with her finger. She was the reason he'd kept going, the reason he'd crawled out of the darkness and learned to live again. And every day he showed up for her, every bedtime story, every school event, every quiet dinner at their tiny kitchen table was a reminder that love doesn't disappear when someone dies. It just changes shape. Boom. 6 months later, the new season started. The Valkyrie had been completely redesigned. Lighter, faster, smarter. Ryan had poured everything he knew into it, and the result was a machine that felt less like a car and more like an extension of the driver's will. Miguel was back, fully healed and hungrier than ever. Caroline had agreed to stay on as the second driver, splitting the season between her and Miguel. The first race was in Australia. Ryan didn't go. He watched from home with Emma, the two of them curled up on the couch with popcorn. Miguel qualified third. Caroline qualified fifth. When the lights went out, Miguel shot off the line like a rocket. By lap 10, he was in second. By lap 30, he was leading. Emma grabbed Ryan's arm. Is he going to win? I don't know, kiddo. Let's watch. Miguel held the lead through lap 40, lap 50, lap 60. With 5 laps to go, the car in second started closing the gap. Ryan's heart pounded. Come on, Emma whispered. Come on, come on, come on. Miguel crossed the finish line half a second ahead of the second-place car. The crowd erupted. Emma screamed and jumped off the couch. He won! Dad! He won! Ryan sat there, stunned. They'd won. After everything, after all the setbacks and failures and near misses. They'd actually won. His phone buzzed, a text from Lena. We did it. Ryan texted back. No, you guys did it. I just helped. Another buzz. Don't be modest. This is yours as much as ours. Ryan set the phone down and pulled Emma into a hug. I'm so proud of you, Dad, she said, her voice muffled against his chest. Thanks, kiddo. Can we get pizza to celebrate? Ryan laughed. Yeah, we can get pizza. The win changed everything. Sponsors came calling. The press wanted interviews. Other teams started poaching Apex's engineers, offering huge salaries and signing bonuses. But most of the team stayed because Lena had built something they believed in. A place where integrity mattered more than shortcuts. Where people were valued, not exploited. Where safety was non-negotiable. Ryan turned down 3 job offers that spring. All of them would have paid more. All of them would have given him more resources. But none of them would have let him leave at 6 to pick up his daughter from school. And that was the deal breaker. One afternoon, Ryan was in the garage bay running diagnostics on a new cooling system when Petrov appeared beside him. "Hey," Petrov said. "Got something for you." He handed Ryan a folder. Inside was a contract, a new one, with Ryan's legal name at the top. Not Ryan Hale, Ryan Callahan. Ryan stared at it. "What is this?" "Lena's been working with legal for months. She got the IP rights transferred back to you, officially. The engine you designed 6 years ago? It's yours again, your name, your work." Ryan's hands trembled. "Why?" "Because it was always yours. Vantage stole it. We've been using it, and that's not okay." Petrov put a hand on Ryan's shoulder. "This is us making it right." Ryan couldn't speak. Petrov squeezed his shoulder once, then walked away. Ryan stood there alone, holding the contract. For 6 years, he'd been running from his name, from his past, from the person he used to be. But maybe he didn't need to run anymore. Maybe he could be both. Ryan Callahan, the engineer who'd lost everything, and Ryan Hale, the father who'd rebuilt himself. They weren't separate people. They were the same person at different points in the same story. And the story wasn't over yet. Done. That evening, Ryan picked Emma up from school and took her to the park. They sat on the swings, kicking their feet lazily, watching the other kids run around. "Dad?" Emma said. "Yeah? Do you think Mom would be proud of you?" Ryan's breath caught. He hadn't talked about Emma's mother in months, not because he'd forgotten, but because the grief had softened into something quieter, something he could carry without it crushing him. "Yeah," Ryan said quietly. "I think she would be." Emma nodded. "Me too." They swung in silence for a while. Then Emma said, "I think she'd be proud of me too." Ryan smiled. "I know she would be." Emma jumped off the swing and ran toward the slide. Ryan watched her go, his heart full in a way it hadn't been in years. Life was messy, imperfect, full of mistakes and second chances and moments that didn't go according to plan. But it was also beautiful, and maybe that was the point. You didn't have to get everything right. You didn't have to be perfect. You just had to show up, do the work, love the people who mattered, and keep moving forward, even when it hurt. Because at the end of the day, the only thing that really mattered was this. You tried. You didn't quit. You didn't give up on yourself or the people counting on you. You kept going, and sometimes, if you were lucky, you found your way back to the person you were always meant to be. Ryan stood up and walked toward the slide, where Emma was waiting at the top, grinning. "Come on, Dad, race you down." Ryan laughed. "You're on." He climbed up beside her, and together they slid down into the soft grass below. And for a moment, just a moment, everything was exactly as it should be. The flight home felt different. Ryan sat by the window, watching the clouds pass below, the fourth-place trophy sitting in the overhead compartment above him. Fourth wasn't first, but it was honest. And somehow, that mattered more. Across the aisle, Caroline was asleep, headphones on, face relaxed in a way Ryan hadn't seen during the race. She'd told him after the podium ceremony that she'd forgotten what it felt like to push a car that hard, to trust the machine under her completely. "I thought I was done with this," she'd said. "Thought I'd moved on, but standing on that podium today, I realized I never really let it go." Ryan had understood that better than she knew. Lena was a few rows back, typing furiously on her laptop, probably fielding emails from sponsors and press. The fourth-place finish had generated more attention than anyone expected, not because of the position, but because of the story behind it. The substitute driver, the rebuilt engine, the team that had exposed corruption and refused to cut corners. People loved an underdog. Ryan pulled out his phone and scrolled through the photos Emma had sent him while he was gone. Her at the park, her eating ice cream, her holding up a drawing she'd made of a race car with the words, "Go Dad," written across the top in crooked letters. His chest tightened. He typed a message. "Landing in 4 hours. Can't wait to see you." She replied almost instantly. "Did you win?" Ryan smiled. "We got 4th place. That's still good, right?" "Yeah, that's still good." "Cool. I made you a cake." Mrs. Alvarez helped. "You didn't have to do that." "I wanted to." "It has sprinkles." Ryan laughed quietly. "Can't wait." He put the phone down and closed his eyes, but sleep didn't come. His mind kept circling back to the race, the moment Caroline had radioed in about the throttle hesitation.
The 30 seconds he'd had to find and fix a problem that could have ended their day. He'd done it, but it had been close, too close. And that was the thing about this work. It was never finished. There was always another fault to find, another system to optimize, another crisis waiting just around the corner. But for the first time in years, Ryan didn't feel overwhelmed by that. He felt ready. Emma was waiting at the airport with Mrs. Alvarez, holding a handmade sign that said, "Welcome home, best dad." The moment Ryan stepped through the arrivals gate, she ran at him full speed. He dropped his bag and caught her, lifting her off the ground. "I missed you so much," Emma said, squeezing his neck. "Missed you too, kiddo." She pulled back and looked at him seriously. "Did you bring me a souvenir?" Ryan laughed. "I did." He set her down and unzipped his carry-on, pulling out a small box. Inside was a delicate wooden puzzle box, the kind sold in the markets near the circuit. Emma's eyes lit up. "What is it?" "It's a puzzle. You have to figure out how to open it." "Is there something inside?" "Maybe." Emma immediately started twisting and turning the box, her tongue poking out in concentration. Mrs. Alvarez smiled at Ryan. "She's been asking about you every hour." "Thanks for watching her." "Anytime. She's a good kid." They drove home, Emma chattering nonstop about everything she'd done while he was gone. She'd finished her book report. She'd beaten her friend Noah at checkers 3 times. She'd learned how to make scrambled eggs without burning them. Ryan listened, soaking in every word. When they got home, the apartment smelled like vanilla and sugar. A lopsided cake sat on the kitchen counter, covered in rainbow sprinkles and white frosting. "I made it myself," Emma said proudly. "Well, Mrs. Alvarez helped with the oven part, but I did the decorating." "It's perfect," Ryan said. "Can we eat it now?" "After dinner." Emma groaned but didn't argue. They ate spaghetti at the kitchen table, and Emma told him about the movie she'd watched, and the new girl in her class who had a ferret, and how she'd finally figured out how to do a cartwheel. Ryan just smiled and nodded, grateful for every mundane, beautiful detail. After dinner, they ate cake. Emma had 2 slices. Ryan had 1. It was too sweet and slightly undercooked in the middle, but it was the best thing he'd tasted all week. That night, Ryan tucked Emma into bed and sat on the edge of her mattress. "Dad?" she said, looking up at him. "Yeah?" "Are you happy?" Ryan blinked. "What do you mean?" "You seem different, like, in a good way. You smile more now." Ryan's throat tightened. "Yeah, kiddo. I think I am." "Good." She yawned. "You deserve to be happy." Ryan leaned down and kissed her forehead. "So do you." "I know. I'm awesome." Ryan laughed. "Yes, you are." He turned off the light and stood in the doorway for a moment, watching her settle into sleep. 6 years ago, he'd thought happiness was something he'd lost forever. Something that had died in a car accident on a rainy highway. But standing there now, watching his daughter breathe softly in the dark, Ryan realized he'd been wrong. Happiness wasn't something you found once and kept forever. It was something you built, piece by piece, day by day. And sometimes you had to lose everything to remember how. The next morning, Ryan drove to the Apex facility. Lena had called an all-hands meeting, and the conference room was packed when he arrived. Engineers, mechanics, logistics coordinators, everyone who'd been part of the Japan trip, plus a few who hadn't. Lena stood at the front, looking tired but energized. "All right, everyone," she said. "I know we just got back, but I wanted to talk while it's still fresh. Japan was a success. Not just because we finished 4th, but because we proved something. We proved that doing things the right way, the hard way, actually works." A few people clapped. Lena smiled. "But we're not done," she continued. "We've got 3 more races this season. And next season, we're aiming higher. I want wins. I want podiums. I want people to know that Apex Velocity stands for something." She paused, looking around the room. "And to do that, we need to keep building, keep improving, keep holding ourselves to a higher standard." Her gaze landed on Ryan. "Which is why I'm promoting Ryan to chief engineer." The room erupted in applause. Ryan blinked. "What?" Lena grinned. "You heard me. Petrov's moving to deputy chief. You'll oversee all propulsion and systems engineering. Full authority. Your name on everything." Ryan shook his head. Lena, I told you, I know what you told me, but you've earned this, and the team needs it. She looked at him steadily. So what do you say? Ryan glanced around the room. Petrov was smiling. Marcus gave him a thumbs up. Caroline, who'd stayed on as a consultant, nodded approvingly from the back. Ryan exhaled. Okay. More applause. Lena walked over and shook his hand. Congratulations. I still don't want press interviews. I'll handle the press. You handle the cars. Deal. After the meeting, Petrov cornered Ryan in the hallway. You know what this means, right? Petrov said. More work? More responsibility, but also more control. You can shape this team however you want. Ryan leaned against the wall. I don't want to change everything. What we have works. I'm not saying change everything. I'm saying make it yours. You've been holding back, keeping your head down. But the team needs a leader, not just a problem solver. Ryan was quiet for a moment. What if I screw it up? Petrov laughed. Then you fix it. That's what you do. Okay. The rest of the season passed in a controlled rush. Ryan threw himself into the work, but differently than before. He set boundaries. He left at 6 every day to pick up Emma from school. He took weekends off. He said no to after-hours calls unless it was truly urgent. And the strange thing was, the team didn't fall apart. If anything, it got stronger. Petrov thrived in his new role, handling day-to-day operations while Ryan focused on the long-term engineering vision. Marcus stepped up as lead analyst, catching problems before they became crises. Caroline stayed on as a consultant, mentoring younger drivers and giving feedback on handling dynamics. They finished the season with 2 more fourth-place finishes and 1/3, not championship level, but consistent, reliable, honest. The press started calling them the Integrity Team. Ryan hated the nickname, but he didn't fight it. One evening in November, Ryan was in his office reviewing designs for next season's engine when there was a knock at the door. Lena walked in without waiting for an answer. We need to talk, she said. Ryan set down his pen. About what? Lena sat across from him, her expression serious. I got a call this morning from the Racing Commission. Ryan's stomach tightened. What about? They've been investigating Cortec for the past 6 months. Turns out the problems went deeper than we thought. They were selling defective parts to 12 different teams. 3 crashes last season were traced back to their components. Jesus. The commission's filing criminal charges against Cortec's executives and against Philip Stern. Lena leaned forward. And they want you to testify. Ryan's blood went cold. Testify? At the trial. You're the one who found the pattern. Your documentation is the foundation of their case. Lena, I can't. I know you don't want the attention, but this is bigger than that. If you testify, you help make sure this never happens again. Ryan stood and walked to the window. What if I say no? Then the case is weaker. Stern might walk. Cortec might get a slap on the wrist instead of real consequences. Ryan stared out at the test track. I changed my name to disappear. If I testify, everyone's going to know who I am, who I was. I know. My daughter will be proud of you, Lena said quietly, because you did the right thing even when it was hard. Ryan closed his eyes. She was right. He knew she was right, but that didn't make it any easier. When's the trial? He asked. 3 months. Ryan turned around. I'll do it. Lena stood. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. I might screw this up. You won't. The next 3 months were brutal. Ryan worked with the commission's lawyers, going through every piece of documentation he'd compiled. He answered hundreds of questions. He prepared for cross-examination. He tried to keep Emma's life as normal as possible while his own life spiraled into something completely unfamiliar. The media got wind of the trial. Reporters started digging into Ryan's past. They found the name change. They found out about his wife. They found old photos of Ryan Callahan, the young engineer who'd once been called a rising star. And suddenly, his carefully constructed anonymity was gone. Emma noticed when kids at school started asking questions. Mia's mom asked if you're famous, Emma said one night at dinner. Ryan set down his fork. What did you say? I said you're just my dad. She pushed her peas around her plate. But are you famous? Not the way you think. Some people know who I used to be, but that doesn't change anything.
Do you wish they didn't know? Ryan considered. Sometimes, but hiding doesn't fix things. Sometimes you have to stand up and deal with stuff even when it's uncomfortable. Emma nodded seriously. Like when I had to tell Mrs. Henderson I broke the classroom globe? Ryan smiled. Exactly like that. That sucked. Language. You say it. I'm an adult. Emma grinned. So when I'm an adult, finish your dinner. The trial started on a cold Tuesday in February. Ryan wore a suit that Lena had insisted he buy. He sat in the witness box, sweating under the courtroom lights, and told the truth. He explained how he'd found the pattern of defects, how he'd cross-referenced failure reports with supplier records, how Philip Stern had pushed for cost reductions while knowing the parts were substandard. The defense attorney tried to rattle him, suggesting Ryan was bitter about his own past, that he was trying to blame others for his failures. Ryan kept his voice steady. I'm not here because I'm bitter. I'm here because 3 drivers could have died, and someone needs to be held accountable for that. The courtroom was silent. When Ryan stepped down, Lena was waiting outside. You did good, she said. I just told the truth. That's all anyone can ask. The trial lasted 2 weeks. In the end, Cortex CEO was sentenced to 5 years. Philip Stern got 3 years and a lifetime ban from the industry. Ryan watched the verdict on TV from home. Emma curled up next to him on the couch. Did you win? Emma asked. It's not about winning, it's about justice. So, did justice happen? Ryan thought about it. Yeah, I think it did. Emma hugged him. I'm proud of you, Dad. Ryan held her tight. Thanks, kiddo. Spring came, and with it, the new racing season. The Valkyrie had been completely redesigned. Ryan had poured everything he knew into it, every lesson learned, every mistake corrected, every innovation tested to exhaustion. Miguel was back, fully healed and hungry. Caroline agreed to split the season with him, each taking half the races. The first race was in Australia. Ryan didn't go. He watched from home with Emma, the two of them eating popcorn on the couch. Miguel qualified second. When the lights went out, he shot forward like he'd been launched from a cannon. By lap 10, he was leading. By lap 30, he'd pulled 5 seconds ahead of the pack. Emma grabbed Ryan's arm. Is he going to win? Maybe. Let's see. Miguel held the lead. Lap 40, lap 50, lap 60. With 10 laps to go, his biggest rival started closing the gap. Ryan's heart pounded. Emma was literally bouncing on the couch. Come on, come on, come on, she whispered. Miguel crossed the finish line 0.3 of a second ahead. Winner. Emma screamed and jumped up, knocking popcorn everywhere. He won! Dad! He won! Ryan sat there, stunned. They'd actually done it. His phone exploded with messages. Lena, Petrov, Marcus, Caroline, even Miguel, who'd managed to text "We did it" before getting mobbed by his team. Ryan texted back to all of them. Congratulations, you earned it. Emma climbed back onto the couch, grinning. Can we get pizza? Ryan laughed. Yeah, we can get pizza. The win changed things, but not in the way Ryan expected. Sponsors flooded in. The press wanted interviews. Other teams started poaching Apex's engineers with huge offers. But most of the teams stayed, because Lena had built something worth staying for. A place where integrity mattered, where people weren't just cogs in a machine, where safety was never negotiable. Ryan turned down 4 job offers that spring. All of them paid more. All of them offered bigger budgets and better resources. But none of them would let him leave at 6 to pick up his daughter. And that was the deal breaker. One afternoon, Petrov came into Ryan's office holding a folder. Got something for you, he said. He handed Ryan the folder. Inside was a legal document, a contract, with Ryan's real name at the top, Ryan Callahan. Not Hale, Callahan. Ryan stared at it. What is this? Lena's been working with legal for months. She got the IP rights transferred back to you. The engine you designed 6 years ago? It's officially yours again. Your name, your work, everything. Ryan's hand shook. Why would she? Because it was always yours. Vantage stole it. We've been using it, and that wasn't right. Petrov put a hand on Ryan's shoulder. This is us making it right. Ryan couldn't speak. Petrov squeezed his shoulder once. Welcome back, Ryan Callahan. He left, and Ryan sat there alone, holding the contract. For 6 years, he'd been running. From his name, from his past, from the person he used to be. But maybe he didn't need to run anymore. Maybe Ryan Callahan and Ryan Hale weren't two different people. Maybe they were the same person at different points in the same story. And the story wasn't over. That evening, Ryan picked Emma up from school and took her to the park. They sat on the swings, kicking their feet lazily. "Dad?" Emma said. "Yeah? Do you think Mom would be proud of you?" Ryan's breath caught. He hadn't talked about Emma's mother in months, not because he'd forgotten, but because the grief had softened into something quieter, something he could carry. "Yeah," Ryan said. "I think she would." Emma nodded. "Me too." They swung in silence for a moment. Then Emma said, "I think she'd be proud of me too." Ryan smiled. "I know she would." Emma jumped off the swing and ran toward the slide. Ryan watched her go, his heart full. Life was messy, imperfect, full of mistakes and moments that didn't go according to plan, but it was also beautiful. And maybe that was the whole point. You didn't have to be perfect. You didn't have to get everything right the first time. You just had to show up, do the work, love the people who mattered, and keep moving forward even when it hurt. Because at the end of the day, what mattered wasn't how many times you fell. It was whether you got back up, whether you tried again, whether you kept faith in yourself when everything else fell apart. Ryan had spent 6 years thinking he'd lost everything that mattered, but the truth was, he'd never lost the most important thing, himself. Ryan stood and walked toward the slide, where Emma was waiting at the top. "Come on, Dad, race you down." Ryan climbed up beside her. "You're on." They slid down together, landing in a heap on the soft grass, both of them laughing. And in that moment, Ryan understood something he'd been too scared to see before. The life he'd rebuilt wasn't weaker than the one he'd lost. It was stronger, because this time he'd built it with his eyes open, with honesty, with the knowledge that nothing lasts forever, but that didn't mean it wasn't worth fighting for. He'd lost his wife. He'd lost his career. He'd lost his name, but he'd found his daughter. He'd found his purpose. He'd found himself. And that was enough. More than enough. Emma tugged his hand. "Ice cream?" Ryan grinned. "Ice cream." They walked toward the parking lot, hand in hand, the late afternoon sun warm on their shoulders. And for the first time in 6 years, Ryan Callahan felt like he was exactly where he was supposed to be. Not because everything was perfect, but because he'd finally learned that perfect was never the goal. The goal was to be present, to be honest, to do the work that mattered, and love the people who needed you. Everything else was just noise.